Every day the girl lives with a thirst for revenge. She wants to avenge her father and has long decided that this is the goal and meaning of her life. And the most interesting thing is that she lives in the house of her enemy. The girl convinced him that she is his own daughter, although this is not true. She and her father had been planning for a long time how and on what day to do it all. And now that day has come. The man has just returned home and most likely, as usual, will come into her room to talk. The lady feels weaker. She's not sure of anything, but she is guided by the fact that if not she, then no one will take revenge on him for what he did. His name is Roderick Allen Eacham. One day his daughter ran away from him, who is incredibly similar to the one who pretended to be her, and all these years in his house was preparing a plan of attack. Every time the girl went out for a walk, she went to her father to discuss what and how she should do. He supported her, and now if everything works out, their enemy will be gone in literally a few minutes. Words cannot describe how difficult and unpleasant it was for her to be in this house. If she is lucky, from the next day her life will start from scratch. She will fulfill her duty, although she still does not believe that this is possible. Every night when she falls asleep, she imagines her father's smile and relief when he finds out she did it. And she also doesn't know that her father secretly came here some time ago to support her. Usually she managed to control herself, but now her whole body and voice are shaking and her head is a little dizzy. Today is the most important day of her life, and in the meantime, she has in her hands what will make her dream come true. This is a treasure that her father will collect as his own life. He gave her this dagger that no one has ever touched. In order not to look confused, she started talking first, asking how his day went and why he came here, instead of going to rest. Suddenly the man says that although he comes to her every day, today for some reason he is nervous and does not know how to explain it. He has a feeling that danger will soon overtake him. But being in his daughter's room, he does not even think that this could be confirmed. I'm very curious what will come of this, because everything can go wrong at any moment, and if he even suspects that she is up to something, then everything is lost. If he sees or hears a sword in her hands, he will have to run away from this house as if her life depended on it. There is something inexplicable inside her now. She wants to laugh at the same time because her dream will come true and be sad, because she must destroy a person with her own hands. But the more she thinks about it, the more she begins to doubt whether she is doing everything right. The girl doesn't fully understand the situation for which she must take revenge. And besides, it's a bit embarrassing to plan something like this against the person who supported and fed her. In any case, since the sword was already in her hands, there was no turning back. She was about to swing at him when suddenly he heard that they were not alone here. The man, without thinking, stood up for his defense, and she decided to take advantage of the opportunity while he was blind and standing with his back to her. The girl began to get down to business. She aimed her gaze at where it would be best to hit and thought that if not now, then never. Here she already took out her sword, swung it, and he, surprisingly, immediately reacted as if he expected this from her. Roderick wanted to defend himself, but grabbed the sword by the sharp edge, and there was poison on it, which immediately got into the blood and began to act. He doesn't understand what's happening. Is it really all real? And asks her how to understand this, and also why she's doing this to him. He already understood that there was not much time left, but he still wanted to know what made her point the sword in his direction. And he also called her by the name of Ayla. That was the name of his real daughter, and since he thought all this time that it was her, he addressed her exactly like that. And the girl, with an angry look, asked her not to call her that anymore. Then she said that she was not his daughter, but he still couldn't hear her. He was swaying a little from side to side. The man calls her name with his last strength, looking disappointed, and at that moment she feels such relief inside that it is impossible to describe in words. Of course, since she has never done anything like this, she feels a little sorry for him, but at the same time, she thinks it was absolutely fair. Roderick tried his best to tell her that he didn't deserve it, but the girl didn't understand anything and thought that she had just imagined it. Only very soon she will understand that, having gotten rid of him, she has created many more problems for herself that she doesn't even know about. And then she suddenly gets the feeling that she was in a hurry, although she can't explain to herself why she suddenly started thinking that way. Meanwhile, her father enters the room. She already wanted to run up to him and say that they succeeded, but she felt some strange energy from him. He doesn't look like a happy man who is grateful to his daughter. He seems like a stranger to her who only used her hands. Maybe because Roderick has a very strong body, he is still conscious and he was able to clearly pronounce Byron's name and ask what he is doing here. Byron started to behave here like he was at home. The girl thought that they would somehow be happy, communicate, but he didn't even approach her. She watches him to understand what is happening because she imagined herself differently at this moment. And he is focused only on Roderick, although there is no point in this anymore, especially since his daughter is standing next to him, who did this job instead of him and wants to hear at least something pleasant. They had already waited until Roderick died. She thought that at least after that her father would tell her something. And he started to behave strangely. She already felt uneasy. That same feeling that she made a mistake only intensified. The lady just started to tell him something. He rudely told her to finish her drink and listen to him carefully. Then he ordered her to return the sword in a strange voice. Although he had never spoken to her like that before, he had always been very nice and polite. But now something strange was happening. It was as if he had been replaced. A couple of minutes pass, and the girl finds out that she is the same girl who once ran away from Roderick's father. He kidnapped her and convinced her that she was a stranger to her own father. It turns out that all this time she was deceived and hated a person who actually did nothing bad and was her close person. The girl can't believe she just did this. She hates herself for not noticing all this time that she was collaborating with someone who wishes harm to her and her family. The whole difficulty was that since childhood, she had only heard that she had to take revenge on Roderick and somehow forgot that she had actually once run away from him. That's how suggestion from the outside and for oneself works. It turns out that she is also a little guilty because if she hadn't run away from home then, everything could have been different now. The man just now admitted that every time he sees her, he feels terrible disgust. It was unbearable for him to look into her blue eyes every day, reminiscent of her father's eyes, but now he won't have to suffer. Because today he plans to get rid of both him and her. He doesn't even thank her for her help. He plunged a sword into her, after which he said that she should not worry about her mother. He would take her to himself and make her his wife. It sounded just awful. She wanted to hit him, but she didn't have the strength to do it. She wasn't as strong as her father, so she started losing consciousness much earlier. The woman heard some sounds, went down to the first floor, and then this happened. She saw her husband and daughter, and that man didn't explain anything. He just took her hand and said that it was better not to make unnecessary noise now. Otherwise, she would end up in their place. She, in complete bewilderment, began to leave this room with him, hoping that all this was a dream and not real. For Ayla, one moment passed. She somehow managed to open her eyes, although she imagined her death somehow differently, and also thought that perhaps she had some memories from the past, and probably this happens to everyone. Firstly, she somehow feels too clearly in her body, and secondly, she had other, more colorful memories in her life than just lying on the bed and looking at the ceiling. She thought something was wrong, started moving, and realized she could even get out of bed. Ayla doesn't understand anything. She's completely confused, and she's also full of questions about where she is and what's wrong with her. Suddenly, a woman comes up to her and asks if she is awake or not, in such a gentle voice that she immediately feels pleased to hear it. She came to remind me that I needed to do my morning workout before breakfast, so she asked me to get ready and go down to the first floor. The lady remembered. This woman's name is Laura, but they hadn't seen each other for so long that she never expected to see her here now. She finished training when she was 16, when she was in the Duke's house. Laura asked why the girl was looking at her as if they hadn't seen each other for a long time, and then repeated that they didn't have time and that someone needed to hurry. Ayla was completely confused, but still pretended as if everything was fine so that no one would think that she had gone crazy. And then she thought that, although it was hard to believe, but if she was somehow able to return to the past, and judging by the fact that Laura is now as young as she was several years ago, then that is how it is. This could mean that she has the opportunity to change the future. Although who gave her this opportunity and whether she will die next time? If she dies is a big question. She clearly remembers that the day of her death was definitely the day before her 18th birthday. So she has about 2 years. Returning to this time, she realized that she had a chance to take revenge on her real enemy and not on her own father, whom she mistakenly considered to be her father. Here they are already outside. Ayla herself doesn't know how, but she found the strength to show up for training, although she didn't want to so much that she almost came up with some kind of excuse. Then she realized that maybe during training she could learn something new and see for herself what was going on here. She hadn't run like that for a long time, so she wasn't able to run even a short distance, although she used to be very good at it. Even when she was offered to skip training, she still got ready and squeezed out the maximum out of herself because she was interested in testing how long she could last. Laura sees that the girl is not coping. Instead of somehow encouraging her, she says that if her father finds out about this, he will probably be disappointed. In fact, the assistant was always like that. She was used to acting as if Ayla was her servant, which means that that pleasant voice in the morning was a coincidence. The girl was surprised how she had allowed her to do this before, because now it was very humiliating for her. Before experiencing life on the Duke's estate, she hadn't known that such neglect was strange, but now Ayla understands. She wasn't Byron's biological daughter, so she acted so recklessly. It hurts, but she will try to look good in front of Laura and her father. The girl realizes the severity of her actions, and they affected her personality. She will definitely try to change everything because she is no longer going to be a naive Ayla who is easy to control. She's tired of smiling at people who don't deserve it, and when she doesn't want to, she usually did it to be convenient for everyone. Now it won't be like that. From now on, she will follow orders, but when the time comes, she will direct the tip of her sword in another direction. Now it doesn't matter how she came back to life. Now you just need to take advantage of the opportunity to the fullest and correct all your mistakes. As it may sound, in this life she must decorate her hands with the blood of the devil. Byron will pay for everything. Meanwhile, she had already approached Cloud. He waited for her and said that she needed to work on punctuality. He taught her all the time while she was under Byron's command. You could say that he deceived the child and raised a villain out of her, which means that he will also answer for everything. She doesn't have any plan yet, so she pretends like nothing happened and apologizes for being late. The guy says he heard she didn't have time to have lunch, so he suggested she eat well first and then come to him. She told him that she wasn't hungry yet, so she could continue training, and when she had no strength, she would tell him about it. Cloud says that from today on she will learn how to handle a weapon, but she is not ready for it. He explains that no one is ever ready to learn something new, so there is no point in bringing it up later. The girl looked at her hands and surprisingly, there was not a single wound on them. She had previously made many mistakes in weapons training and often received injuries. It turns out it's summer now. She'll soon be 13. There are 4 years left before she enters the Duke's house. To begin with, the trainer suggests warming up the body because without it, no training or even the most basic exercises will go well. In the meantime, he asked her to run and come back. Since so much time has passed, she has already forgotten and does not know anything about the state of this body, so this needs to be sorted out. The girl thought, why not check right now what she is capable of? Ayla began to offend as much as possible. At first she ran so fast that she was surprised that she managed to do it, and then she saw a not very high branch in front of her, calculated the jump, jumped on it, and then she wanted to climb even higher, because this is also considered training. It was a very interesting experience, and her abilities turned out to be better than she expected, and that makes her very happy. The girl is already at such a height that from here you can clearly see the entire area around, and even more. She thought it was just great that she had the necessary skills, so there would be no problem with movement. If she trains constantly, she will become stronger and faster than ever in her life, and maybe she will be able to return to the Duke's residence before 4 years. Then she had another idea to climb straight to the top of the tree, but then she thought to do it next time so as not to make anyone wait. And at that moment, Ayla remembers something very important, something that you always need to remember and not forget about it. Byron put a curse on her. The curse was lifted only before she entered the Duke's house. She doesn't know exactly what kind of curse it is, nor does she know how it is activated. She was just shaking with fear, because if she says something to Byron and he gets offended, he can destroy her without even touching her. As she goes downstairs, she thinks, it's very strange why they let go of the leash before eventually taking away freedom. Besides, there are a couple of other suspicious moments that she can't get out of her head. Byron, his personality, the source of capital that is constantly coming in, a plot to destroy on an immeasurable scale, her relationship with her real father. The meaning of the things that wanted to be returned, her mother, the place that was said to need to be returned. I just need to understand how to find out all this as far as she is concerned. Now the girl can't really rebel. And then she looks at her room from afar and a brilliant idea appears in her head. It came to her that her room did not fit into this layout, but there were definitely no other doors on this floor except her room. If she thinks hard enough, maybe she can find some secret places she never knew about before. I wonder where she gets such thoughts and memories from. But if that's the case, then it's only for the best. The main thing is to use it correctly. If she manages to find a secret passage there, everything will be very simple. Maybe she will even find out Byron's plans or news from outside. Ayla landed a little awkwardly. She stepped right into a puddle, but she still ran on because there was no time for that. Then she ran a little further and stepped in again, probably too inattentive at that moment. It's a good thing she has the right shoes because if she had the usual ones, she would have lost all her mood. She ran so fast she didn't want to stop. But something made her look into this puddle and so carefully that she even saw in her not only herself, she has too many things in her thoughts now, which is why the lady saw in the reflection her biological father with whom she is so similar. But for some reason she did not notice it before. She blindly hated him and did not see anything good in him. She felt uneasy because it turns out that all the time he was taking care of her, she hated him and destroyed him with her own hands. The girl even said out loud that they were so similar, but she didn't recognize him and will blame herself for this for a very long time, even if this time she manages to change everything. The past mistake will remain in the memory. It will come up in the saddest moments and cause great pain. Then she promised herself that she would definitely come back. And no matter how difficult or dangerous it would be in the future, she would definitely do it. Ayla returned to the trainer. He allowed her to rest today because it is wrong to train on an empty stomach, but next time he warned that he would give her twice as much load. She didn't argue with him. Laura came up to her just in time and said that her father was waiting for her. He wanted to ask her something. In short, the lady wants to change the course of all events. And no matter how long it takes, how scared she is, she must fix everything at any cost. Someday she will return to her real parents and be happy, but now she will have to try very hard for this. Ayla knows how Byron doesn't like to wait, so she ran to him as soon as she found out that he was waiting for her. She was a little afraid to go to him after what he really was like and what he was trying to achieve, but she still went in with a smile as if nothing had happened. The girl even called him daddy, pretended as if she missed him a lot, and she even succeeded. He also greeted her and immediately asked her to come closer to him, as if some dragon had said it. She is going to play her role to the end, no matter how disgusting it is. There is no other choice for now. The girl thought he would just ask how she was doing, but he said that Laura reported that Ayla went to bed late, and because of that, she couldn't wake up for training as usual, overslept and was unproductive today. He wants to know how it happened. What made her go to bed so late? They agreed that she had a strict schedule and she shouldn't ignore it. Of course, she's not going to tell him the truth because she doesn't know it herself. It ended up here in some inexplicable way, so she had to come up with something. Supposedly, she had a nightmare, and she is very sorry that it happened. The main thing is that he believes it and doesn't get too angry. It didn't sound like an excuse. She started telling in detail what time she woke up at night, how long she couldn't fall asleep, and so on. She very quickly came up with the idea that she had a dream that her father had abandoned her because she was no longer useful to him. Instead of starting to console her and say something nice, he laughed, and she was surprised that she hadn't noticed such elementary moments before and hadn't realized that her own father would never have reacted like that in such a situation. He didn't even suggest that the girl get up on her feet and look him in the eyes. He just put his hand on her head and told her in a cold voice not to be afraid of these dreams, because in a couple of days she would forget them anyway. And his touch will be far from pleasant. He put his hand very heavily and did not even see that he closed her eye. He is so indifferent that it is visible even from the outside. It is good that now she also understands this and does not believe these promises that he will never leave her and that she is his only hope. She asks him if he can forgive her for such a violation, and he seems to deliberately begin to drag out the pause so that she feels ashamed. And after that, she said that she hoped that this would not happen again, and also advised me to go to bed earlier today so that I would wake up earlier tomorrow. It's strange, Why is it so important to him that she doesn't miss training? Well, if it's so important to him, she will please him in any way she can, so that he doesn't guess that she has something against him. Words cannot describe how disgusting it is for her to look into those disgusting eyes. You can even see it a little on her, although he probably doesn't even notice this, because he simply doesn't care about her. He doesn't even look her in the eye. Meanwhile, as soon as the assistant came into his office, he pushed the girl away and then said that it was an accident, although she already understands everything perfectly well. He can tell people whatever he wants, but he will never hide his true face from her, no matter how hard he tries. The assistant brought a portion of meat with a side dish, and from his reaction, it was already clear that something was wrong. Now he will definitely say something. The man asks why they always bring him the same thing. They have nothing else in this house, and what does he constantly allocate money for? That the cook has no imagination? The girl at this moment tries to sit quietly on the sidelines so that he does not splash out his anger on her, because now she does not need extra problems. Meanwhile, Ayla had already returned to her room. Lola came to her to comb her hair and help her get ready for bed. And she also wants to give some advice. She says that the gentleman cares very much about his daughter, so she must show some success to justify his expectations. It sounded terrible, but she was forced to agree with her so as not to arouse unnecessary suspicions and not argue about it. The girl said that she understood everything and repeated to listen to this advice, but she did not expect that Lola would immediately change her attitude towards her very sharply after that. It was as if a demon had entered her. She started to pull the lady's hair and said that today she had been so arrogant all day and did not answer her right away, but instead of asking what she was doing. The girl began to explain that she was just tired and she simply misunderstood her, although she really wanted to turn around and do the same to her. She understands that if she acts recklessly now and gives in to emotions, she will simply ruin her revenge and only make things worse. After that, the assistant started to leave, and then the girl understood why Lola was so brave towards her. She just knows that Ayla doesn't like to upset her father and won't tell him that something is wrong. That's the whole secret. Finally, the woman ordered her to go to bed immediately, unless, of course, she wanted to treat the master terribly tomorrow. Words cannot describe how hard it is for her to hold back now, but she has enough patience, and that is very good. The lady thinks to herself that someday she will make everyone pay for their sins, because all this is too much. Revenge, it's all very important. But now she has another mission. She needs to find that very secret room that she thought of today during training. The girl is almost sure that there must be something here. It is obvious that the entrance to the secret room must be invisible, and there will obviously be no clues on it in the form of a door handle or some kind of sign. You definitely shouldn't count on that. To begin with, she went to the first wall she came across and started thinking about where to start searching. Ayla had never done anything like this before and was afraid that someone would come to her at the most inopportune moment. It seems to her that this is where the secret passage should be. If it really is here, then she is very lucky, because to get there, she doesn't even have to leave the room and attract unnecessary attention. The girl looked closely at the pattern on the wall and noticed something interesting. Although it is possible that it may not mean anything, but she will not pass by until she checks it. These stripes on the stone, there must be ventilation in the secret room. They must perform this function. If you look closely, you can see something there. Ayla already feels that she is close to solving the mystery, and she also has some strange anxiety inside her. But she tries not to pay attention to it. Meanwhile, she noticed that there was no wind, but the gaps between the cracks seemed too wide, and it didn't look like there was some kind of construction error. She thought that there must definitely be something there. She put a stool under it because she couldn't reach it just like that. Even though she feels that there is more than just a crack, the girl still doubts that she was able to do it so quickly. Suddenly, she managed to move some small section of the wall. At first, she was a little scared, but then she realized that everything was fine. She became very interested in what would happen next. She was very pleased inside that she thought of this. Now, all that remains is not to be afraid to go further into the darkness, where there is complete uncertainty and there may be all sorts of surprises. She managed to open a secret passage. Now she needs to get in there quickly so as not to waste time, because who knows, maybe someone will come to her at night. And if this someone realizes that she has found a passage, the situation can turn out in the most unpredictable way. Ayla decided that she should go there. After all, it was not for nothing that she returned to the past. She needed to use all possible opportunities that she came across along the way. I wonder where these steps lead. The girl has already begun to imagine what awaits her there, but she probably won't even be able to imagine what will actually happen there. Meanwhile, Byron is still in his office, with him as usual, his assistant. He suddenly admitted that something is bothering him. This is the same trainer that the young lady is working with, and the gentleman is already ready to listen to what he wants to tell him. The guy started telling that they had their first training session on using the ball that afternoon, and she had done surprisingly well, although he had expected something completely different from her. He finds it hard to believe that this is the first sword that a 12-year-old girl, who doesn't look like someone who would be interested in this, is holding in her hands. The thing is that initially no one except Byron knew that Ayla was not his biological daughter, so he replied that she was the daughter of a man who could handle a sword better than anyone. He meant himself, and he also said that the blood of a noble swordmaster flows in her veins, so there is nothing surprising about this. And how great that father and daughter are both so talented. Only immediately after this phrase, his face changed dramatically. That one can notice that in reality, all this is nothing more than acting even in front of the servants, to whom he should not care. But he still treats it so carefully and responsibly that he cannot afford a mistake even with one of them. After this, the gentleman asked the assistant not to think about it, because he hoped that her skills would quickly improve and she would be able to stab his enemy in the back. Byron was already a little tired of the assistant being constantly near him, so he began to hint that he should start leaving. Asked him if there was anything else he could tell him. He replied that there was none yet. Then the gentleman asked him to leave. Supposedly, it was time for him to rest too. Although it was unlikely that he would leave right away, he would probably sit here until the morning as usual. Meanwhile, it's already night outside. Surprisingly, there's no one in the office, but some sounds can be heard outside the window. There you can clearly hear someone coming closer and closer, but it is not some kind of robber or villain. This is Ayla, who somehow ended up on the street. She made sure that there was no one here, opened the window, and Milena started to come in with such a peaceful face, as if she had no problems in her life right now. For some reason, she feels so wonderful right now that it can't even be described in words. It can even be seen in her smooth and graceful movements. Even though she is the daughter of a swordmaster, she had no talent, and she still has questions that won't leave her head. If that's true, then why did she have so many scars in her past life, as if she was beaten all day? Her skills were so insignificant that she had to suffer every time from Byron, who took advantage of it. Then she thought that everything was not as bad as it could have been, and there was no point in wasting time on what was in the past, because now you need to concentrate only on the present and do the best you can. I'm very curious as to how she ended up here, but right now all she can think about is focusing on finding clues, and she can find the most information right here. On Byron's table, which even his most trusted assistants are forbidden to touch, and even more so, no one has the right to be here without his permission. She came up here very boldly, noticed a lot of letters, and of course, started checking everything in a row. You never know. Maybe there might be something interesting here. The girl is surprised that there is so much here. She thought that they live in a shelter and have little contact with the outside world. And then she notices a letter where it says the following: I have carefully considered your offer. I would also like to hunt a young lion, but the lion is protected by a wolf. How can I pull this off? But Your Highness, you have already failed in the long hunt for the lion, so I will consider that your proposal has not been heard. I think your memory fades with age, didn't you? Go on a long lion hunt with Endro? Don't forget I have the evidence in my hands. I know what you're worried about, but don't worry. My hunting dogs are very useful, and I'll be able to get rid of the wolves soon. It is unclear how, but she somehow figured out that the lion is probably her, and the wolf is her father. We are talking about the death of a father at the hands of his own daughter. It is impossible to deny, but their plan is absolutely thought out and brilliant. The girl seems to understand everything perfectly, but she has too many questions in her head and even more doubts that she is capable of handling all this herself. Byron has a whole team in his arsenal, and she is alone, and also under his careful control. Correspondence between nobles often contains various code words. For example, families are often designated by symbolic animals. This is necessary in order to avoid conflicts in the event of a leak of information about the contents of the letter. Usually small animals are used, such as deer or badgers. She was once taught this, but then she did not understand why she had to learn it, because it was all elementary. She already knew it. And anyway, she would sooner or later leave this ducal estate. The teacher was telling that strong animals like wolves or lions are used for powerful families like the Weissenhofen house. And all the while, Isla was pretending to listen to her. In the end, she didn't absorb a lot of information and regretted it because now she's trying to remember what the lion symbolizes and can't do it. The girl spent a lot of time here. She just thought about going back when suddenly someone starts entering the room. In the end, she managed to hide very cleverly. Only she went to where the servants' quarters were very close. She even managed to overhear their conversation. Someone says that he doesn't know whether it's worth continuing to do something, deceiving such a small child. And judging by the voice, Lola started asking, has everyone really forgotten what the child's father did? But the only child they all know is only Ayla. Among all these people, the girl also recognized Kephalia. She had been looking after her for some time, a long time ago. So here she is. Don't they all thirst for revenge? Because at the very least her husband died, and all because of the same person they are discussing. It turns out that most of the servants have also suffered and want to take revenge just like their master. So they fully support him in this. They started discussing it so actively that everyone had a variety of emotions. Someone started crying, someone started screaming, someone was silent from sadness. It's as if they're trying to decide whether to continue holding a grudge or whether it's better to let go of the past, no matter how painful it may be. Meanwhile, the next day has come. Ayla went to bed so late yesterday that she overslept again today, but now she doesn't care because her body wants to sleep and she can't do anything about it. In those couple of hours that she tried to rest, she couldn't get enough sleep. The girl thought about everything, and this only made things worse for herself. She can't stop hearing the voices of those people who discussed something yesterday, and she didn't even understand whether it concerned her in any way or not. Even though they didn't say her name, she still feels like something is wrong. After all, she is the only child they could call a child. And then the assistant bursts into her room, saying that this has never happened before, and the girl didn't even have time to understand what was happening, because usually they at least knock on her door. Ayla got up and asked her what happened, but the assistant didn't even know how to say it correctly. That the gentleman is in a bad mood today, and she will have to have breakfast in her room alone. The lady is not surprised by this, but she is still interested to know. The woman herself does not know what happened, and she also allowed herself to ask whether the lady had done anything that could anger her father, hinting that nothing else could spoil his mood. The worst thing that could happen is if he found out she was in his office tonight. That's what she fears the most. While the girl is thinking whether this could be or not, she has already started to find fault with the mess in the room. Although in fact this is her job, and if she appeared here often, nothing like this would happen. But the lady was thinking about her own things and therefore didn't say anything to her about it, although it wouldn't have hurt, because lately they all allow themselves too much. As expected, she went to training, because if you miss training, then nothing worse can be imagined, no matter how much you don't want to. She pulled herself together and came here. The girl tries to unload her thoughts a little, but there is so much in them that it seems impossible. About which sometime later, the assistant came to the master and as usual began to talk about the successes of the Isla. He says that the girl complained that she didn't get enough sleep again, but she still did so well, as if everything was fine with her. And if you also take into account that this is her second lesson, then she is doubly great. The gentleman's hands are already shaking from how disgusted he is to hear this name. He can't say that he is not interested because it would sound too strange. This is supposedly his own daughter, of whom he should be proud. The guy doesn't understand all this. He tells everything he noticed and doesn't even realize that in just a couple of minutes, he'll only irritate the gentleman. At the very moment when he says that the girl is just like her father, Byron couldn't stand it. He brushed all the documents aside. Then I approached him and asked why they were always talking about the child and whether they really had nothing else to do. The assistant asked what's wrong with that, since they always did it that way, after which the gentleman couldn't hold back anymore. I was a keen. He came as close to him as he could. grabbed him by the clothes and told him straight out that he no longer wanted to spend all his time talking about some training, especially since they were going well. He shouldn't take time for this, but if it were the other way around, that would be a different matter, and then he would need to intervene. After that, he said that he hoped that they understood each other and that there would be no more such meaningless conversations. And in the meantime, the girl was so invigorated that she didn't want to leave. She decided to stay and do some warm-up exercises so that her muscles wouldn't hurt later. As it turned out, at that moment there was a carriage on the territory. The driver asked the boy to go back because the wind was getting stronger. Andy replied that he was already on his way. But I wonder who he was and what he was doing here, because Ayla had never seen him here before. Primus, a city on the far western edge. Built high in the mountains, its name derived from the first great emperor, Primus Harp Bart Pelis. Having founded the Empire of Pelis, he left behind his last oath: I will become the guardian deity of this empire. Then the emperor disappeared behind the treacherous western mountains, and none of his descendants ever found his remains. Since then, a tradition has taken root in the royal family of Pelis. Any heir to the throne must go to the Primus before the coronation, only after meeting with the guardian deity of the empire and completing the ritual. They could actually be recognized as a kingdom, so a grand temple was built in the Primus, and with such a sacred myth around it, the city did not receive much commercial development. People began to pay more attention to maintaining traditions. 3 more days passed since then. The girl decided to check Byron's room again. She saw a map in his office, where the places where, apparently, he was going to go in the near future were underlined, but it was not yet clear why exactly. She has only one assumption, that it could be somehow connected with the lion hunt, or rather a specific person or family, because no other versions match. And it's also strange that there wasn't a single letter left on the table. It's as if he burned every single one. Maybe he always does this, and it has nothing to do with the fact that she saw them. Based on this, the girl concluded that she needed to appear here often now, because all sorts of letters and documents do not stay on his desk for long. It happened that Ayla accompanied Byron on his trips, but in most cases it was just moving from place to place. But once, just once, they did leave here. He even made her drink a disguise potion, and then he left her in the tavern without explanation. Then the girl thought for a long time how to understand this and why he needed her at all. She did not know what was happening and just waited for him. She was very lucky that she decided to return to her room early this time, because literally a couple of minutes after she went to bed, Byron knocked on her door. She began to think about what was better to do: pretend to be asleep or explain that she simply couldn't sleep, because any mistake could cost a lot. He came in so boldly that she was afraid to even look in his direction and turn around, because you can't expect anything from this man. But unfortunately, she only knows about this recently. She still decided to pretend that she was sleeping and didn't hear him, and he started touching her, probably to understand whether she heard him or not. Words cannot describe what she is feeling at that moment, because who knows? Maybe he is already feeling a bit under the weather, because that is more likely, and he never comes to her that late. The girl tried to pretend that she was sleeping, and then she supposedly noticed him, because if she had continued sleeping, he would have definitely suspected that she was pretending, because it is impossible not to feel when someone touches a person during sleep. At first he thought that she was really sleeping. He even thought about leaving, but Ayla turned towards him and made a surprised expression on her face. The girl had already imagined everything that could be imagined, expected anything from him, and even looked at him with frightened eyes. And he surprisingly simply asked how she was doing, but this didn't make her feel any better. Rather the opposite, because as we know, there is always a calm before the storm. It turns out he came with Cloud and now says he shouldn't have woken her up. Although if he says that, then the question arises why he did it then. In the end, he just asked her to try to fall asleep again and never said what he needed. Probably decided to postpone this conversation for later. The girl promised that as soon as he left, she would immediately fall asleep with a strained smile, which she barely managed to portray. Those two left. She was finally left alone, and she doesn't even know whether to be happy about it or not, because she has some kind of bad feeling. Now it is unclear how to fall asleep normally. She will be tormented by the feeling that everything is not as good as it seems. The next day has come. Today she has another lesson. The girl is glad that today she doesn't have to run anywhere. They have some experiments today. A girl is sitting at a table. She has a lot of things around her. She is trying to mix something to learn something new. And the teacher is worried that she will mix something incomprehensible. She wanted to add a drop of some chemical element to the flask, but he ran up so abruptly and asked her not to do it, as if it could result in some kind of explosion. It was probably a good thing he was watching her. Otherwise, something could have gone wrong, and the two of them would have had to justify themselves to Byron. The guy asked that if next time she wanted to mix two ingredients together that she had never mixed before, it would be better to ask about it right away, so that both he would be calm and she would know that nothing like that would happen. Ayla apologized. She just got carried away by the process and wanted something new, but didn't think about what it could lead to. Clyde understands perfectly well that at her age it is impossible to hold back in such lessons. He himself was like that, but there are rules that must be followed. He would really like them to do something that could make her feel emotions, but it's too early for that. She doesn't yet have a proper understanding of how and what works with each other, what can be mixed and what is better not to. As a result, the lesson is very boring. He only tells the theory, but they never get to practice. The guy allows them to experiment with safe substances, but it's not interesting. Clyde promised that he would try to teach her the theory in a short time so that she could start practicing sooner, because he saw how much she was looking forward to it. She had at least some hope that soon she would not be bored and idle. Although the more she thought about it, the slower time would seem to go. After that, they started talking about the fact that the girl had been having dinner alone lately. She decided to ask Clyde if he knew what could have influenced this. It seems to her that since he is more often with and even talks to her father, he might know the answer to this question. But he says that he also noticed that the gentleman began to treat him more distantly. He would also really like to know the reason, but unfortunately, so far he has no information on this matter. And he also remembered that moment when he talked too much about the girl and how the gentleman reacted to it. He still gets goosebumps from it whenever he remembers it. He really wants to be honest with her. But firstly, by doing so, he will only spoil her mood, betray the gentleman who thinks that he can talk to her about such topics. And thirdly, he will not solve the problem with this information. Ayla felt that he was not telling her everything, and probably knew more than he was telling. But she didn't expect anything else from him. He was still afraid of losing his reputation and the trust of the master. He thought that if he told the girl the whole truth, it wasn't worth it, and it would be better for them to sort out their problems themselves than for him to butt in and make things worse. After they talked about it, he thought that maybe he would release the girl early today too, because he couldn't be around her normally when he remembered that her father didn't care about her. He thought to himself that she was already successful in everything. So if they did less than they were supposed to a few times, there would be nothing wrong with that. Ayla has really enjoyed training lately, so she gets a little sad when he lets her go early. And she has absolutely nothing to do at home. So that's another problem, and she doesn't even have friends or hobbies here. If you spend all your free time planning and implementing these plans, she will get up very quickly. There is an urgent need to come up with something, and it so happened that the very next day they had some kind of trip planned. They will leave as soon as everything is loaded, and luckily this time Byron takes her with him again. At least today she won't have a boring day. She really doesn't want to drink this transformation potion, but there is no choice. She drank it and became a different person in appearance, although she had done it more than once. But still, every time it happens as if for the first time. One of the assistants warned that the effect only lasts for one day, so the potion must be taken daily, and also reminded the girl to never look outside when she takes out the magic flute. No one guesses, but she has everything perfectly prepared. It's very good that Cloud left first, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to prepare the sleeping potion. It's not entirely clear what this is all about, but the main thing is that she is sure that everything should go smoothly. But for now, the girl only doubts whether she can interfere with Byron's plan. She can't confirm the plan without documents, but she can make assumptions. Byron has few minions. Not counting the servants, only 30 private soldiers. When he needs more men, he seems to hire mercenaries. But this time he didn't take much money. He takes only one companion, Cloud, with him to the shelter. This means that if something happens, most likely, Cloud will act alone. He is the only strong one in this group. Ale thinks that if she continues to follow them, She will definitely come up with something. Maybe some ideas will appear on the go. Here they have already arrived at a very beautiful place. The girl, as soon as she saw the view from this window, she immediately did not believe her eyes because she had never seen anything like this before. It's really impressive. She even froze in one place from how much she likes it here. She wanted to forget about all the problems and just walk around this area, but she doesn't have that opportunity, and first she needs to get here in the first place. There are guards at the entrance. They make sure that no strangers enter the territory, so there are no other entrances here, only this one. They were able to agree on everything. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't very difficult either. The main thing is that everything worked out, and how, that's not important anymore. Night came. No one had any plans for this evening. Everyone went to rest because all the most important things will happen tomorrow. It's already dark outside, but some people are still awake. Some have waited for the others to go to their rooms. Ayla has already managed to do some work, but this is just the beginning. She does not waste time and acts as covertly as possible. While the girl was standing on the roof, she noticed that someone was walking around the yard, also in a cloak and also hiding his face, although it was clear from his body that it was clearly a guy. She began to watch him from the side, trying not to attract unnecessary attention to herself, while she is a little worried that if it turns out that there is nothing interesting there, then she will only waste her time. And it's also incredibly difficult for her to stay on the slippery roof, which is also at an angle. It's quite a challenge. And she also saw that in one place, something lit up very brightly, like a flash. And there, as if from nowhere, some child appeared, but already in a light cloak and with black hair. She wondered who these people were, and if they had anything to do with what was written in the letter on Byron's desk, where someone called someone a lion. She really wants to come closer to see their faces, but at the same time, the girl understands that it is better to stay away. You never know. Probably until she finds out what they are doing here and who they are, she won't go anywhere either because maybe it can help her somehow. And they also behave strangely. Sometimes they stand in one place, motionless. Sometimes they go somewhere very quickly and suddenly stop, as if they are trying to confuse someone. Ayla looked at all this calmly and then remembered what was written in the letter. A young lion, and judging by the fact that the boy had some kind of special cloak with a pattern, it was likely that the man was hunting him. Without thinking twice, she decided to take a risk, jumped up and took him with her to a dark place, to at least save him if necessary, and if not, then better this way than if she later regretted not having done it. You can tell from his eyes that he didn't expect this, doesn't understand who she is, and is even a little afraid because he is also here for the first time and doesn't know anyone. The lady looked into his eyes. She now has more and more confidence that she understood everything correctly and is doing the right thing. And considering that the man in the black cloak has a sword with him, this boy will thank her later. She grabs him and very quickly drags him to some place so that at least he can't be seen from the street. An adult boy heard a noise, immediately started looking around, which means that he was definitely looking for someone, and it was quite possible that it was that same boy. It is clear from him that if he does not do his job, he will be punished. But fortunately, that child is no longer in sight. I don't even want to imagine what would have happened if he had seen him. And when the guy said out loud where he had gone, it all became obvious. He was looking for his victim. All this time, he knew that the boy was somewhere here, but he didn't want to attack abruptly. And when he heard the noise, he realized that it would be better to do everything at once, because it was already too late. He started running through all these nearby alleys, but there was no one anywhere. At least he didn't notice anyone. I wonder how it will all end. And in the meantime, Ayla tries to make that child understand that now it is better for him not to make unnecessary sounds and to trust her. She can't tell him this in words because they will be heard immediately, and fortunately, the boy doesn't resist much yet. Suddenly, he got tired of being in such a situation. He began to remove her hand from his face. After all, she is a stranger to him, and he has no reason to trust her. She realized that he was starting to struggle. She told him to hold on a little longer, but the boy no longer had the strength. He starts to get nervous, bites her fingers, and says that if she doesn't explain everything to him right now, he'll scream loudly across the street. It's a pity that he doesn't yet understand what he's doing, although in his place, she would most likely feel exactly the same and would behave much more aggressively, that's for sure. He is most interested in who she is because the only thing he knows is that she just fell on him from the sky. At least that's what it looked like. He even thought out of fear that she was some kind of heavenly angel. No one has ever called her that, but that's not the point now. We need to somehow protect the two of them from that guy and only then figure out who is who. Because if they discuss everything now, the villain will find them, and then it will be too late to do anything. Literally a couple of minutes later, a whole crowd of knights had already gathered on the street. It seems they joined that guy because they found out that the boy was missing and one person could no longer cope. They warn very loudly that if the child does not appear before them immediately when they find him, it will be worse for him. They have such unpleasant voices that even if a child wanted to give up, he would still be afraid to answer them. And as for these two, they had already managed to climb onto the roof. Now he understands who she is and what she wanted from him. Only some people still haven't apologized for helping, and right now they could be holding him hostage. But she doesn't remind him of this because she has a lot of thoughts and she understands him perfectly. She asks how he feels and tries to make it clear that they are still not safe. So it is too early to relax, and if he wants, now he can only ask the most important things. He says he doesn't even know where to start because there are so many questions. And if you take into account those that he doesn't know how to formulate, there are even more. It's surprising that the girl didn't even think that her evening would go like this. She planned to spend it a little differently, but she's still glad that she at least helped a person. Because of this, she feels very nice inside, even though you can't tell by looking at it. Suddenly, she turns towards him and notices that some magic is happening. He says some words and something starts to happen. All this energy began to somehow calm down Ayla, and this magic also smells very nice, like some flowers that grow right by the sea. The guy has changed a little in appearance. He seems to have become a little older, and she doesn't even know what to ask because she doesn't know what she thinks about it. The more he begins to show himself, the more she understands why those people are looking for him. There is something special in him, something that can be useful or, on the contrary, hinders someone. Unlike how it was literally a couple of minutes ago, now he behaves much more confidently, as if they had left this place very far away and were safe, although this is not yet the case. They can be found at any moment. The girl doesn't forget about it, and he started doing something, even talking to himself, and she has no idea how to understand it. He notices that she is interested in learning something, so he said that when there is time, they will definitely get to know each other better, because she was right. Now is not the time for that. It's strange that they don't try to go anywhere, somewhere further. They just sat in the same place and are in no hurry. They both understand that the enemies are close, but it is as if they know that they are no longer in danger and have nothing to fear. Meanwhile, she asks him how he ended up here and why he came to a place where there is danger for him. The guy replied that he was invited here for an important meeting. They said that he would be met on a specific street, but he waited a long time for this person, and then she showed up. This means that he found out that it was a trap, but for now she is afraid to tell him about it. You never know how he will react to it. After that, he also asked how it happened that she found out about this trap before he did, but she would also answer this question a little later. After that, the girl asked him what he was going to do next, and he looked at her in surprise and realized that he hadn't thought about it, even though it was already night and it was time to find a place to sleep. He is surprised at himself how he could not have thought up this trip in such detail. He even felt awkward in front of her because the girl might think that he is as frivolous as he might seem at first glance. She is already starting to get angry because it turns out that she has to help him with this. Although if she returns to the house with someone, he will immediately see this, and there will be a lot of questions about where she went and what she did. Then he remembered that he had something that he could sell and get money with which he could rent a room. After that, he said that he didn't want her to get into trouble because of him, so he advised her to go home before they started looking for her too. And he also finally realized that they still haven't met. He doesn't know her name, and she doesn't know his, so he offered to fix it. She's already in such a bad mood that she did not hear what he said. The girl just looks at this golden object and does not think about anything. In the end, he introduced himself to her anyway. His name is Winfried Julius Pellis. He is the crown prince of the Pellis Empire. Ayla just heard this. She couldn't believe her eyes and ears because she expected to hear anything, but not that he was the crown prince. She doesn't even know what to say to him about this. The lady forgot to introduce herself because he simply confused her. A lot of time has passed, and that guy in the black cloak is still walking the streets in the hope of finding his prey. He promised himself that he would do it no matter what it cost him. But since he is so persistent in looking for it, it means that there must be a serious reason for it. Meanwhile, he hears two guards walking down the street to check if everything is okay, and she immediately ran away from them, just like the children had recently run away from him. You could say he felt like he was in their place. And when he thought that no one would notice him, at the most unexpected moment, someone leaned a sword against his back and asked what he was doing there. Words cannot describe what the guy felt at that moment, and of course, they won't get any truth from him. He started to act like he was just taking a walk at night and asked with a displeased look why they stopped him. As if no one saw that he was hiding behind those boxes like the real villain they were looking for. Naturally, no one started talking. Everyone immediately took out their swords. Apparently, there will be only one winner, and they will not disperse peacefully. That guy also realized that since he was noticed, he needed to fight back. And he also understood that someone else could join in at any moment. He doesn't even know the strength of this guard, so he's worried that he'll lose at the very least, and at the most, he won't achieve his goal. There was incredible energy raging between them. Even from the outside, you can feel how serious everything is, and that everyone will fight to the end. It's impossible to imagine what would have happened if the guy had tried to trick him or somehow avoided this fight. But it is what it is. So far, we can conclude that they have approximately the same strength, because it is equally difficult for both of them to fight each other. When they were already a little tired, they stopped attacking, just stood opposite each other and realized that now they could only talk, although they didn't really want to. It turns out they knew each other before. The guard recognized the guy at first sight and also says that someone's fencing has become quite dirty since the last time he saw him. Meanwhile, these two are sitting in the same place. It's already getting chilly outside, but it doesn't bother them. This meeting turned out to be very pleasant for them, although they don't say it, but the two of them like sitting on the roof because no one has done this before. Winfred just now decided to apologize for taking up so much of her time, but he doesn't know how to fix it and how to thank her now for everything she's done for him. He sees that she is upset. He starts asking, "What is the matter?" She is silent, as if she was offended by him. It turns out that at this moment, she is thinking about very important moments that are now worrying her the most. The symbol of the royal family was a lion. She heard that the current emperor, a close friend of her father, and about the same age. Young Lion refers to the current emperor. Does this mean Byron intends to rebel? And she also wonders why he went so far. The moment he said she could call him just Vin, she didn't even hear him and asked if she could ask him a question. He said that he would try to answer everything, and she asked him, regarding the throne, is there anything that could be a fight now? Instead of answering right away, he asked why she was asking about it. Because due to circumstances he could not study normally, he only knows that something happened to the royal family. To which she replied that that's exactly why they're worried, so that she can't say the wrong thing if they get too close. He tells her that she is too kind, and she thought it was half true, but still, there is little good now. Now it is very difficult to grasp the essence of their conversation. Some scattered phrases, topics change abruptly, but that is how it is. Vin realized that she was interested in everything related to his family, so he had no problem telling her that when their grandfather, the former emperor, was choosing his successor, he named their father, the second prince, the crown prince. The boy himself doesn't know the exact reasons, but usually the throne goes to the eldest son, at least as far as he knows. Also, it happened that their grandfather broke this tradition, and the uncle was furious. His name was Byron Lionel Vito Pellis. He was a very capable man. Just with his words, he could unite several noble houses and had considerable influence. He led them and raised a rebellion. At that time, father went on a journey to the Primus, as is Vin now. At this desperate moment, Duke Roderick Weisschaffen and his knights burst into the room. Once the Empire's strongest swordmaster intervened, the rebellion was quickly suppressed. Traitors who were caught were stripped of their titles and punished with death, while those who escaped were put on the wanted list. Their uncle hasn't been caught yet, he's still wanted, so the boy advises Ayla to check the wanted list at the Public Security Bureau sometime. After this information, she understood why the boy's eyes were the same color as Byron's, and she also asked how close Win was to his uncle. Vin laughed because he was only 4 years old at the time, which meant that all this was about 10 years ago, which is not that long ago. Meanwhile, the boy says that, to be honest, he has never met him in person, and everything he just said, he learned from other people. 3 years ago, his grandfather finally passed away. His father didn't want him to know about it, but apparently his grandfather had other thoughts. Vin tells this because he wanted him to become crown prince. Once the boy's father came into the room where he lay in a serious condition before his death and tried to explain that the boy was still too young for the title of crown prince, to which the old man replied that wisdom is something that the position itself cultivates. And after that, he said that their uncle is still alive in this country, and they never know when he might come back again and haunt one of them. He also addressed his grandson with the words that he should learn a lot and stay close to his father in order to support him well when needed, and also hinted that this was his last request. Then the boy promised that he would fulfill his request, become a crown prince worthy of this empire, and also protect his father as long as he lived. Meanwhile, Vin says that he knows that he is too young now and has no idea what he will face in the future. But he will never go back on his words, and now that he has passed the coming-of-age ceremony, he wants to grow up as soon as possible, and his global goal is to help his father, catch his uncle, and bring peace to this land. This is his biggest dream that must come true, and he has never told anyone about it because he has almost no friends. Then he realized that he had completely lost his way while explaining all this, and apologized if most of the information was useless for her. He just didn't know what she was interested in, and that's why she told everything. So they didn't notice that it was already getting light outside. They felt like they had become friends, and this was probably not their last meeting. After the conversation, the girl withdrew a little into herself. She began to mentally talk to herself. Her inner voice sounds like this. In the past future, you yourself destroyed my father, and perhaps Byron's rebellion was also successful. Now all I do is live for revenge, which eats me up from the inside. But now for the first time, I am grateful to fate for this, because if not me, no one will do it. Meanwhile, Ayla was already tired of sitting in one place. It was far from soft here, and they really needed to go back. She offered to take her where she needed to go before it was too late. He says that there are probably too many people around who are hunting them, hinting that it is too early to move, but she does not intend to stay here. Now that she knows Byron is a traitor, she has to dig deeper, and there is no time to sit around doing nothing. The girl tells him that they should leave here together, and while he was doubting it, she had already jumped off the roof, and says that if he is scared, then she can insure him, although she is not sure that she has enough strength to catch him, just in case. Well, at least this should help him a little to decide on this. It looks a little strange, but she still caught him with her hands, and he felt so awkward that he even stopped talking. And then she decided to tell him a secret, although she herself was not sure about it. But she still said that these people were most likely sent by his uncle. Vin thought that he misheard, and then realized that if she was saying such a thing, then she had reasons for it. While they are trying to quickly hide somewhere, he asks how she knows this, and she doesn't even know how to explain it all correctly, because this should remain, at least for now. When suddenly they were almost noticed by those people, but she quickly captured him and disappeared into the gorge, and he felt a little offended that he was not as dexterous as she was, and without her, he had long been caught by those people. She understands that it is not safe to stay there, so she leads him further, even though she herself does not know what is nearby. The girl is now risking for both of them, and she also has to put on a confident expression so that both of them don't panic. And also, while there was still time, she decided to agree with him that if they asked him something, then he had not seen her, and she would say the same. In the end, they agreed that he would stay outside because he didn't want to cause her any inconvenience, and the girl tried to fall asleep, but somehow couldn't. Suddenly, she snapped her fingers, and a small golden chest appeared in front of her, the same as the one Win had shown her. He appeared so quickly that she didn't even expect it, and she doubted that she would succeed at all. In the end, she decided that she wasn't going to sleep tonight, and since that was the case, it was better to do something useful. The girl thinks that her intervention created the variable cloud disappearance. To be honest, it's very troublesome. She began to think that if he never returned, all future events would be distorted and her actions would be severely limited. In any case, she does not regret it because thanks to the meeting with Winfred, she received something very valuable. Whatever happens in the future, she will know that she has done her best, and she will also believe that only good things await her in the future. Meanwhile, the same guard who fought with that hooligan all night was unable to catch him and asked for forgiveness from his master, Winfred. Usually he tries to do everything to make the gentleman happy with his work, but this time the situation got out of control, and he is very sorry that he has to tell him this. And he also says that he can explain something, because this incident is some kind of mistake, and he is almost sure of it. The guy admits that this time all of them, as escorts, were weak, and the crimes that allowed the villain to escape are unacceptable. But they think that the man is not as simple as they think, which means that the preparation should have been much more serious. Vin replied that he had sent a letter to His Majesty, so we could talk about it later, and now it was much more important to find out where the escaped villain was. And he also said this in a very calm voice, although inside he understood that everything was very bad. The gentleman doubts that the villain is stronger than his accompanying knights and begins to hint that someone probably just relaxed during training and did not pay due attention to it. They started talking about it so seriously that the master no longer tries to downplay the fact that his knights have become very lazy. He personally noticed more than once how they were walking around the territory instead of doing their daily training quota. He tries to explain that if they treat their business so terribly, then the villains will easily escape from them every time. And yesterday's situation will not be an exception, but something usual. He wants to hear some good news. And not that their opponents turned out to be stronger. This has never happened before, and apparently they will have to work hard on this. Recently, the gentleman has been devoting very little time to checks. Apparently, someone is starting to use this, and judging by the results of their work, for a very long time. Of course, the assistant is very unhappy with the master's words, but inside he himself understands that all his words are absolutely true, and they themselves are to blame for everything. And it also turns out that Vin deceived the girl when he said that he couldn't stay, although in fact he has such places everywhere, and there is no problem at all. She probably doesn't know much about him. It's just strange that he was standing alone in the middle of the street, and there were no knights near him. Several hours passed. It was time to leave here and go back to where he and they all came from. He would really like to see Ayla again, but if she sees his rested appearance, she will understand that something is wrong. Although, judging by the fact that she already found out who he is, this shouldn't be a problem. And in the meantime, the guy's already getting into his carriage. At some point, instead of going back to his place, the guy suddenly decided to check on someone. Here they are already there. One of the knights explains that there will be a check and asks to take off everything they are wearing. Meanwhile, the girl was already tired of everything that was happening, but she thought that if she went through today, then everything would return to normal. Because the cloud sent her a letter, he apparently fled beyond the city walls, was treated by an unknown village doctor, and came to consciousness after 3 full days. Instead of straining and reuniting, he decided to first return to the shelter. Strangely, when Byron read this letter, he left everything as it was. For some reason, she thought he would be angrier. But he's not angry at all, and he doesn't seem to care about the cloud at all. Maybe the reason is that the cloud is so valuable, as if it were some kind of asset. Then if she gets the cloud on her side, there will be some meaning to all this. Or maybe not. He hasn't left the shelter for years. She didn't know the reason before, but now she seems to understand what's going on. This trip to the street was a big blow, and for Byron, in order to avoid surveillance, he had to hide well. Now that she's got this collar on, she'll have to play along for now, and it seems like it'll be a long time before she meets her new friend again. She really wants it to happen as soon as possible, but Ayla looks at reality and doubts that it will be the way she wants it to be. She wonders if he will remember her before this happens, if he will think well of her, and how quickly she will become uninteresting to him at that moment. And this can happen. Meanwhile, Roderick's assistants came to him. They upset him that they couldn't cope with something, and he doesn't like to hear that. The man asked what the matter was, and they said that they had never encountered anything like this and had no idea how to do it. The gentleman was very strict in terms of work. He told them to simply deal with it until they succeeded. He is not going to explain anything to them, to prompt them, because the more he does it, the more lazy they become to decide something on their own. The gentleman warned that he was going to go to his wife and advised them not to waste time because he would give them no other work until they dealt with this. The man thinks that they just need to be smart and use logic to make it work, but they can't even do that. So this whole situation will be a lesson for them. They will try to figure it out as much as it takes, no less, no more. Ophelia is a very beautiful woman who knows how to find an approach to her husband. She is his muse and inspiration. She is so comfortable with her that having been near her, he can forget about everything. If it weren't for her, he would have gone crazy a long time ago. Because lately there have been so many problems at work that only she can calm him down and help him. It's amazing that she can do this with just her presence, and he still doesn't understand how she does it. Roderick trusts her completely. He has no secrets from her, and they make almost every serious decision together because her opinion is as important as his, especially when it comes to their personal matters. As it is now, he just needs to come to her, and she immediately feels that he needs to be told what he needs and what his mood is. Only here, the only problem in their relationship is that he comes to her only when he needs help, and he himself very rarely asks or even thinks about things that concern her. What his woman feels at that moment when he has not asked her for a very long time the basics, what her problems are, how she feels, and whether she gets enough of his attention. Sometimes he thinks about it, but most often it happens too late. When it is no longer necessary, he is often ashamed of it. But she is a loving wife who understands everything and is ready to endure such difficulties for the sake of his happiness. Because if she also starts talking about what's wrong with her, then sooner or later they simply won't be able to maintain balance, and he will understand that their relationship really depends on her patience. Sometimes Ophelia tries to hint that it is not easy for her either. There are days when he comes to her, and she feels even worse than he does, but she still tries to give him time and attention, although she herself would not refuse such a thing. And in the meantime, the evening has come. The two main enemies are about to cross their swords, and only the strongest will win. It's very interesting how all this will happen, because no one is going to give in. Everyone will give their best, even if it will be very difficult. In their looks, you can see absolute ruthlessness, as if there can be no obstacles in front of them. Even their steps sound so loud that it's scary to even be somewhere nearby. And the energy is also appropriate. Byron, unlike his opponent, greeted him with a smile, as if he had come to all this with a friend, and he with an enemy. The closer they get to each other, the more they feel how they want to finally end this as quickly as possible, because it can't go on like this any longer. It is impossible to guess now who will be stronger, because everyone has been preparing for this meeting almost their entire lives, and they are not alone here. The fight will take place in front of a third person who is also eager to find out who will win. He tries not to say anything because there is no point in it, and he does not want to distract the enemies and delay time, because the sooner everything happens, the better. Everyone starts saying some intimidating words, suggesting to say something before death, for example, a last wish. But no one reacts to this, because now the main thing is not the words but the result. After all, he who laughs last laughs. Words cannot describe. At the same time, it is nice to be here, because on the one hand, it is impossible to deny that each of them is strong. But on the other hand, the thought that in a few minutes you can leave as a winner inspires and energizes. Everyone wants to make the decisive blow. Everyone will use their own unique technique, and everyone will give it their all. Some try to look as aggressive as possible, attacking even with words in their appearance, while others remain as calm as possible so as not to waste energy until it is necessary. Byron chose a strategy to provoke, and the enemy looks at him so calmly and coldly that this also provokes well. Everyone does this, only each in a different way. Here they are getting closer and closer to each other. In a few seconds, the most interesting part will begin, and in a few minutes, most likely one of them will remain alive. They are already a meter away from each other. They have very little time to build up their strength and endurance, because there will be no more such opportunity. They started to agree on who would attack them first, but they had two different ideas, so no one could come to an agreement. Even now, Byron provokes Roderick in the hope that it will somehow help, but he does not give in for a second. His endurance and self-confidence are impressive. Roderick is simply confident that justice is on his side today, And if it exists at all, then he has nothing to fear, or rather, no one. On the contrary, these eyes do not inspire any fear in him. He rather finds these antics funny because there is no seriousness in them. The main thing for him is that he is honest with himself, because when he talked with his wife, she told him that if he is destined, then everything will be fine and the luck will be on his side. She never doubted him, and because of that, he also doesn't doubt himself, not for a second. Never. At that moment when she supported him, he was charged with her kindness and promised himself to return with good news to make both himself and her happy, synonym. They have such a pattern in life that if they have not done anything bad and have lived according to their conscience, then they will pass any tests with ease. And if they try to deceive someone or think badly of someone, life throws them problems that are impossible to cope with. And since they have not done anything like that lately and have lived according to their conscience, there is nothing to be afraid of. 3 years later, a lot has happened in that time. After a long time, Ayla finally met the guy she used to see every day without exception. And the first thing he told her was that she had grown a lot and changed a little. The girl answered him that it was all thanks to the great teacher Cloud, without whose help she would hardly be alive now. His thoughts at this moment, her achievements in basic physical training, fencing, and even resistance to poisons are extraordinary. Is it really all about the fact that the blood of Genelis flows in her? And Ayla thinks about the fact that he made a strange expression on his face. And he also has very noticeable small scars that immediately catch the eye. They indicate that during this time, he had to see a lot. They don't talk yet, they just look at each other. For example, he still can't get used to the fact that she is no longer a child, and over so many years her character has changed somewhat. He started talking about some kind of training, and she, out of habit, because she was once afraid of it, but then she still remembered how much she loved this thing. Then some huge magical bird appeared. It was so unexpected that she was a little scared, especially since he didn't warn her about it, and she doesn't remember anything similar happening in the future, as if her fate had really changed. He suggested calling it all free time, but she still didn't understand what that meant. She just started looking around because the views here are simply indescribable, and they also really distract from the conversation. He realized that she had questions, so he explained that there was simply nothing to teach her for now, although he would like to remember his youth and give her a couple of assignments. She is flawless in every sense of the word, so he doesn't even have any options on what to do with her. It seems to him that it's impossible to do better. At one time, the girl approached each training session very responsibly, so now she does not need any improvements. Ayla thought that today everything would happen somehow differently, but he is much colder than she would like, although maybe there are reasons for this. As much as he didn't want to say it, but he decided to. The guy admitted that he was now useless to her in terms of training, because in some things she had even happened to him. He would never admit this to other people in his life, but with her he wants to be sincere and also not think or be afraid before every word. Here they are already walking along some path between the trees. It is a bit difficult to move because of the snow, but they have no other option. I wonder where they're heading, and the guy still looks confused for some reason, as if he's not sure that's where they need to go. This is not what bothers the girl the most. She tried for a long time to understand her feelings for this man because she was not sure if she had any at all and what she felt next to him. If you put all these moments aside, she still feels how everything has changed and the future also continues to change. She is afraid that all this will lead to a stream of events that she will be able to control. This is exactly what she used to do, but now her heart is pricking with fear. She just wasn't ready for such a crazy pace. That's not all. The same attraction that she feels for the coach, the lady feels for another person. To whine, and he was just sitting in his office and didn't understand why such obsessive thoughts about her suddenly appeared. It was as if he felt that she was thinking about him. Moreover, he even hears her voice in his head, as if she is saying his name, and he feels very pleased about it. The guy is sitting in the same place, not waiting for anyone, when suddenly he heard someone approaching him down the corridor. And when this man said his name to find out if he was here or not, the guy understood everything. It was his father, whom they had not seen for several days. The father comes into the room and happily says that he finally has some free time and also suggests having a cup of tea together. Of course, the guy is very happy to see him. he only has warm emotions around this person. They also couldn't resist talking about work, namely that they both had too little rest lately and that this needed to be corrected. Then they started talking about who Vin was going to send the scrolls with unknown addresses to. The guy thinks that if he says that this is the same benefactor, he will definitely try to help. So he decided that it is better to remain silent. In the end, he replied that it was not about that, but since his father was always busy, he could not take away his time without a reason. The man was surprised by this answer. He thought he would hear something interesting, but in the end, he didn't find out anything. He even called his son a little rascal, because if his son says that he wants to see him, he will immediately run up and in the future advise not to force himself to hold back. Vin got a little angry. He said again that it was not about that and explained that he was just growing up and that it was normal. The father thinks that his son is too young for such conversations, and yet they are offended that he never told him anything about his first love. Words cannot describe how terribly awkward the guy feels. Like all people his age in such situations, he doesn't understand. Doesn't his father see that now is not the time for such conversations? And when he is ready, he will tell and show everything himself. And then the man asks, didn't Vin say that lately? His chest trembles when he is in the palace. Vin admitted that he couldn't even concentrate on work and had lost his appetite, to which his father replied that the royal brothers had said that his health was fine. And also in that case, there is only one answer. It is nothing other than lovesickness. He himself once felt the same and can safely say that the reason is most likely this. The guy tries to explain that he doesn't think that's the case, but his father just laughs at this and already asks to introduce him to the young lady he's been so carefully hiding from him. Vin couldn't resist asking if his father had really spoken so boldly about his relationship with his parents when they asked about it. And when the man thought about it, he asked if he didn't think he was being too persistent now. The father calmed down very quickly. He realized that at the very least, he was meddling in something that wasn't his business. And if his son wanted, he would have told him everything a long time ago. But maybe he would tell him later, only when he was ready. He apologized for his behavior, explained that he had simply been waiting for this for a long time and could not contain his emotions. He only said at the end that he would wait very long until the moment when his son would be completely open with him, without all these embarrassments and secrets. The only thing that Vin could tell him was that he had never had a person in his life for whom he had such feelings and sensations. He described Ayla as a special girl who charmed him at first sight, but he kept the fact that she saved his life a secret. It's probably not very pleasant to tell someone about this. The main thing is that he admitted that he had feelings for someone and that it was all serious. If they both knew that it was all absolutely mutual, they wouldn't be sad and would have found a way to meet long ago. On the one hand, he is now very pleased that his father is interested in his personal life, but sometimes it is too much, although he does not think so. It's kind of weird to watch a situation where one person is smiling and the other one feels terribly uncomfortable. From the moment all these questions only increased, Wine could no longer stand it. He simply began to push his father out of the room because it was no longer possible. He wants to be alone, to think about everything himself, not to see that smiling face. And he is also a little offended that his father does not understand that he is not in the mood for jokes now. At the very last moment, his father asked him to take this before he forgot about it, because it was unknown when they would see each other next time, and it could happen after a huge amount of time. The boy asked what it was, and the man explained that 3 years ago, when the Weishofen house went on a Western trip, they were unable to meet with the wine. Because of this, to this day, they cannot pass on the very gifts that they were supposed to pass on back then. My father asked me to send and deliver a lot of boxes on my father's behalf, and he also asked me not to be surprised and just fulfill his request without any questions. Meanwhile, Ayla has already come to terms with herself and returned to find something, and she is also interested in finding out what Cloud said that got people so excited. She decided to sneak around tonight and find out everything that interests her while she is here, and she has the desire to do so. For the last 3 years, she continued to secretly visit Byron's room. Even lying on the bottom, Byron did not stop exchanging. One day, while spying on him, she made a shocking discovery. One of the Baron's employees, a foreign nobleman, Count Sinosfon of Insulkov, a neighboring state to the southwest of the empire. He is none other than Byron's financial sponsor. The girl can't even imagine what kind of state secrets they could trade for the sake of this alliance. Ayla doesn't know the exact details, but it's definitely all very serious. She couldn't risk losing the information, so she copied everything she could. It took a long time, but it was worth it. If it weren't for Winfred's gift, she doesn't know how she would have carried it in any case. After so many days spent like this, gathering information was no longer the main problem. What she really needs to watch for are the shifts in the future, of which there will be quite a few. It's too late for it to be a butterfly effect after Winfred's fall. The timing doesn't match up, and she can't find any sense in it. Is there someone else besides her who changes the future? One can only guess about this. Ayla doesn't even know why she came back at all. There is a high probability that someone else came back too. While she was standing in front of some doors, a girl came up to her and asked what she was doing there, and Sister Cloud told her that she should immediately return to her room. He said that the owner is in a very bad mood, so he advises to be extremely careful and not to anger him unnecessarily. There was nothing left to do but agree. She had no desire to argue with anyone, to explain that she couldn't just sit in one place now, but there was nothing she could do. If even Cloud went out of his mind to deliver that message, then things were bound to get serious again. Meanwhile, the girl had already approached some window. For some reason, she didn't go through the door. Probably she was again trying to get somewhere where she wasn't expected. She thinks now that even if she had already gotten used to it, it was too easy. But there is just a question. Hasn't Byron relaxed too much lately? He didn't even try to hide this mess. True, from Byron's point of view, it will not be easy to be wary of a girl whom he has already cursed. And this is what is annoying. Suddenly, she unexpectedly notices a letter that somehow didn't manage to burn. It might just contain some clue or something interesting. She didn't pass by it and, of course, stopped to check what it was. She was so curious about what could be in it that the girl could barely hold the letter. Her hands were shaking so much. It's impossible to believe that he didn't check the room completely, leaving this letter safe and sound. Although, if he had been more careful, she wouldn't have found anything now. Meanwhile, the next day came. Ayla went out to training early in the morning. She thought that at least today she would be able to push herself and get tired, but the coach this time also decided that half an hour would be enough, no more. He gives her too much free time. He is literally unrecognizable because before everything was completely the opposite, she begged him to free up a couple of hours earlier because it was unbearable to spend half a day training. And here she doesn't even have time to tense up as the training is over and now she has nothing to do. Even when she was alone without him, the training lasted much longer, and now she doesn't like that she doesn't get tired at all. In the end, the lady couldn't hold back. She ran off for a run because she believes that you need to run a certain distance a day, so that later it doesn't turn out that she is no longer as resilient as she was. The girl tries to load herself up about the same as before, but not much less. With all this, there is complete chaos in her head. She did not plan today at all, and the girl is also afraid of not being productive enough. While she was running, she remembered about her parents. The fact is that recently a very unpleasant situation happened. She learned very important news not from them, but from the servants who could not restrain themselves and told her a secret. The parents are going to have a second child. The mother is no longer in early pregnancy, which means that they are hiding it and don't want Ayla to guess anything. It's a shame for the lady that strangers already know about this, and she somehow miraculously found out about it from those she didn't expect. Ayla feels like they are starting to drift apart. Mom and Autumn had been planning a child for a long time. Their daughter knew about it, but for some reason they decided to hide the fact that everything worked out for them. I wonder how they will explain it when she tells them that she already knows everything, and will they feel even a little ashamed? So she had already reached somewhere. On the way, she met a black rabbit and couldn't pass by. He was so cute, and she had never seen such an animal, so she really wanted to look at him. She was all in tears from these thoughts about her parents. And now he has drawn her attention to himself, and now she is focused only on him. Then she stood for some time, realized that he was not alone here, and decided to stay to see how many of them were here. It is clear that he was very scared of her. He started to hide, but she still sees him and doesn't even know whether to come closer or not. She really wants to look at them all up close, but she might scare them away, so she doesn't, because she imagines how scared they must be that someone noticed them. It would seem that there is nothing special about it. Animals are walking through the forest, but for her it is something unusual, so much so that she froze in place, as if enchanted. She has a variety of emotions. She even imagined how good it must be for them all to be together in the family circle. They hide from her, then come back as if they are starting to get used to her and understand that she is not as scary as they thought. Isla has already forgotten where she was going. She wants to follow. At the same time, something inside her tells her that this is a mistake. Meanwhile, her parents are at home as usual. They are looking out the window, and the woman as usual listened to her husband to give him advice and calm him down. He had another hard day today. He came back from the office, saw that his wife was in a bad mood, and still started talking about her. For a moment, he thought that she was probably not just sad, asked what was wrong, but she was not used to sharing her problems with him, so she answered that everything was fine. And it just seemed to him. It turns out that she blames herself for the loss of the child. She believes that it is all her fault and no one else's. Now she hates herself for having once trusted the nurse too much and thought that she had enough experience to make everything go as it should. For a long time after that, she tried endlessly to atone for her guilt by yearning for her child, but that same terrible feeling grew stronger. She couldn't even dream of finding a new life. She felt guilty towards their daughter, and it seemed impossible. At least that's what it seemed to her. The woman still missed her lost daughter, but she couldn't give up her new life because of guilt. She wants to know that Ayla is safe now, not walking in the cold, and that she has no problems. The woman mentally asked her daughter for forgiveness, and it seems that she will do this for the rest of her life, and it still won't make her feel any better. She also promised to raise Ayla's little brother and sister with the love that she was unable to give her at the time. But if only Roderick knew that his wife was suffering much more now, and that she needed help even more than he did, he wouldn't even say a word about anything of his own. Meanwhile, the girl was chasing a rabbit and stupidly got lost in the forest, from where she can't get out now, and it started to rain so hard that nothing could help her anymore. She hid under the trees, but it was still pointless. Isla remembered that very feeling that warned her that she shouldn't do this and regretted doing it her way. If she had just gone her own way now, as she did initially, none of this would have happened, but now it's unknown when she'll end up under some kind of protection. She walks through this cold forest, imagines how far she has gone. There are puddles everywhere. She herself is crying, and her whole body is so wet that she no longer feels the cold. She will at least get very sick, but now it is unknown when she will be able to warm up at all. There is fog everywhere, through which nothing can be seen. Even if there are people standing a few meters away from her, she simply won't see them. And in the meantime, several hours have passed, and she fell into some puddle again, started crying loudly, and at that moment she heard someone opening some door. It just so happened that this is the same Byron she was going to, even though literally a couple of minutes ago she probably couldn't even imagine that she would quickly see his face. And all these people, the man asks her if she liked the outside world, and she doesn't even know whether to tell him the truth or not, because if she tells him everything she thinks, she will ruin her mood, and she started apologizing because she was wrong, and now she consciously understands it. And he is so pleased to hear it that even his voice and look changed. Even though she really didn't like him saying such words, she couldn't say anything else to him, especially since she doesn't have the strength to start some kind of conflict and prove her case to anyone. After such an unsuccessful trip, all she wants to do is lie down on the sofa and sleep for as long as she can. The girl is now dreaming of warm food, peace, a hot bath, and of course, warm clothes, because the ones she is wearing are already just icy and very wet. She really doesn't want to humiliate herself in front of him like this. But if she didn't do it, she would just end up on the street. But at least there is a chance that he will allow her to return. Although, given his difficult character, it is unlikely that he will do it just like that. He also starts saying that even if he leaves her here, he will arrange a probationary period because she knew that she shouldn't argue with him and still did it her way. And he also demands that she apologize to him every time she approaches him to say something. He goes so that she fully understands what it is like to disobey his opinion, or at least doubt that he is right, especially not to mention deceiving him or something like that. In the end, he left her on the street for an indefinite period of time, while making it clear that he might change his mind in the near future. But it's not certain. And she feels so terrible that she doesn't care where she spends the night, because she has nothing to lose anyway. Isla is hungry, the rain is falling on her clothes are wet, and she will spend at least one day in these conditions. She can't understand how the person who could bring her back didn't do it, knowing how hard it is for her outside. She imagines with hatred how warm they are now, that they have full access to everything they need for comfort. But she has none of this and will not have any in the near future. The assistant asks the gentleman if he is being too harsh with her, but he remains silent, as if making it clear that no one will argue with his decision. He explains that if he is cruel to someone, then that person deserves it, and he is not going to justify himself to anyone. He also asked a strange question. Did Clyde still not remember that his master is the most honest and fair man in this world? But it seems that he only considers himself as such. If others thought so too, the assistant would not have asked why Byron did this, and several times. He was completely perplexed. How could one treat a child like that, who tearfully begged to be allowed to return? It was obvious that she was remorseful. If it were up to him, he would never let the child stay outside where it was cold and impossible to be in even outerwear. He imagines with horror what it's like for her to be in cold, wet clothes and humiliate herself by begging for something warm. The guy even wanted to argue with the gentleman, but this lady noticed his intention and came up to convince him otherwise, because she understands perfectly well that this would be a mistake. And the worst thing about this whole situation is that the gentleman just looks at the girl from the window with such a look as if he had defeated someone or proved something to someone. Then he turned to the assistant with such a smile that Cloud felt terribly ashamed of this man, and also of the fact that he worked for him. Probably if he had the opportunity to go to another place, he would have done it a long time ago. He can't stop thinking about how he would feel now in Ayla's place, but she didn't do anything bad to suffer like that now. Everyone thinks that he just wants to show himself as the most important, powerful, unshakable, and after some time he will allow her to come in. But for some reason this is not happening yet. It's as if he enjoys how weak Ayla looks. The weather outside is only getting worse. It is impossible to stand there calmly. The wind is incredibly strong. You can hear it even in the house with the windows closed, let alone being there all this time. The girl was so tired of standing on her feet that she didn't notice how she lay down on the floor and fell asleep right on the icy ground. But she didn't have to lie there for long. Some man came to her, started to pick her up in his arms, probably wants to carry her inside while no one is looking. Most likely it could be one of the servants who could not look at her calmly and acted according to his conscience. After some time, she comes to, opens her eyes and does not yet see how she looks from the outside. Her face is so red, as if she had been lying in the snow for several days, and it will take her the same amount of time to warm up. There is a familiar person standing in front of her. She sees him very vaguely, blurrily, and cannot yet clearly determine who he is. The only thing that can be said for sure is that she is incredibly pleased that someone took care of her. But she is still afraid that if it was against Byron's will, the consequences could be very bad. So far, she can't find the strength to even ask a couple of questions. And when the guy spoke, she realized it was Cloud. Some time passed. She was finally able to say something. The first thing she told him was that in the cold she lost all her strength, and she is also afraid that they might not come back to her. Ayla understands that this cannot happen, but at the same time, for some reason, she worries about it. And she feels so comfortable with him that it is impossible to describe in words. He speaks to her in a very gentle voice, which is very calming. Because she spent too much time outside, she is a little scared by all the sounds outside the window, but she tries not to notice them. I wonder what the assistant is planning. He knows Byron very well, and even more so what he is capable of when someone does not act the way he wants. Moreover, everyone knows very well that he is categorically against the lady being in comfort after leaving this house. Cloud doesn't say anything yet. He probably doesn't understand what the consequences might be, and he doesn't want to upset her even more. In his eyes, she feels all the good that can be said about a person, and she also wants to believe that he knows what he is doing. Otherwise, he will create problems for himself. She ended up vomiting very badly for several days without stopping. She was soon loaded into a cargo hold. The route was unknown, and she was only able to open her eyes for short moments. All she heard were some loud sounds, conversations of strangers, and she could only imagine where they were taking her. Then she opens her eyes, sees Cloud in front of her, and she feels a little better, because if he is near, she knows that everything will be fine. She immediately remembered how he was with her at that difficult moment a few days ago, and her soul immediately felt good. It was the most terrible evening of her life. It is impossible to imagine anything like this anymore. You wouldn't wish this even on your enemy, except perhaps the person because of whom all this happened. And she also wants to cry, but for some reason the tears don't appear. She's probably already cried out everything she could. The guy asks how she feels. Although he understands that in her place, he wouldn't even want to hear this question, but he still asked out of politeness. And he also admitted that when he sees her in such a difficult state, he wants to change places with her so that she can feel lighter for at least a moment. And she is so pleased to hear this that she can't even explain how much. It's just evident from her reaction. They've become so close lately that if it weren't for this whole situation, it probably wouldn't have happened. So there's at least something good in all of this. And she also had a question since she was being transferred somewhere. Why didn't they even assign her the worst carriage? Was it really necessary to lie next to all these boxes? It looks more like they are trying to take her away somewhere so that no one will notice. No other explanation for this can be thought of yet. The girl thought about it and even felt much more cheerful because it is possible that this is Cloud's plan, which even Byron does not know about. It is unlikely, but it can also happen. Perhaps he wants to say later that she ran away again in an unknown direction. And in this way, he will give her freedom because he understands that staying here is the same as staying in hell. In the end, the girl decided not to bother. She just trusts fate in the hope that at least after such trials, it has prepared something pleasant for her. She has been through so much during this time that she doesn't care anymore because it definitely can't get any worse. As long as it's not raining on her and she's in dry clothes, Elu is completely happy with everything. But before, if someone had told her that she needed these 2 points for happiness and peace, she would have laughed rather than believed it. Just in case, she also covered herself with a blanket because if it suddenly turns out that she is really being hidden, it will be better that way. After he left her, the guy started to worry that if by some chance Ayla knew everything, and what should he do in that case? Meanwhile, the assistant asked him where they were going because no one had told her anything about it yet, and she doesn't really like surprises. He answered her that as for the destination, it was not clear, but was probably somewhere in the east. You can tell from her that she didn't expect to hear this and doesn't understand at all what they will be doing there, because before they went there, even on important business. But then suddenly, there were some incomprehensible trips and little information. He also said that the pursuit is relentless, so there is a high probability that the plan may change halfway through. And he also hinted that it will be some kind of camp, but the girl does not understand why she is needed then. Cloud asked her not to worry and promised that he would make sure that she was comfortable on this trip. Meanwhile, Vin is also not sitting still. He went on a short trip, apparently found time and thought to see an old friend, or rather a girlfriend. He has been heading towards Ayla's house for a long time, and the smile on his face does not leave his face throughout the entire trip. And this means that he is really looking forward to this meeting and has not yet warned the girl about it. Although, probably, if she knew this, maybe she would not have gone anywhere. Although it is still unclear what would be better for her. Half an hour passed, and now the servants of this house are greeting him. They just saw him on the horizon and immediately ran to meet him, as if everything was planned. Naturally, he is very pleased when I am greeted like this. And then he suddenly says a very strange phrase, something like that his mother is here. Right after that, the owners of the house came out. They were very happy to see him, but from their reaction, it was still unclear. Is it really that someone doesn't know something? The guy says that a lot of time has passed. He would not like to part for another so long, and he was also surprised when he found out that they left for the west so late. The man apologizes. He explained that some urgent matters came up, and then Vin asked if they missed him or not. Roderick replied that of course they had all been waiting for this moment, and also said that the boy had grown so much since he had last seen him. Vin is proud that he will soon become an adult, he clarified his heightened voice, which has become much better. It is no longer like a child's. When suddenly, before they talked about it, he asked them to first listen carefully to what he wanted to say at the very beginning. He says that first they must accept some gifts. This is a gift from His Majesty, new fabrics, ingredients that are good for the body, aromatic, and also helps to sleep. Roderick asked if it was too much, and the guy replied, not at all, because after this he had a separate gift that he had prepared personally. The man wondered if the habit of giving excessive gifts was hereditary, because it was very familiar to him. And now the guy has started on the main gift. He put the most effort into it, so he needs an honest reaction to it. This is a small rattle that looks beautiful and makes unusual sounds, and it is also translucent and pink in color. It was made to order, and His Majesty ordered him to show it to him. The woman says that he made her laugh heartily and asked him to convey her sincere gratitude to His Majesty. And her husband at that moment holds this toy, and on the one hand he likes it, but on the other he expected something else. After this conversation, the guy breathed a sigh of relief because the main thing for him was that Roderick was at least a little distracted and relaxed. At that moment he remembered a recent conversation with his father when the man wanted to ask him for one thing. Then he said that the guy could forget since some situation happened in his youth. Namely, that the ducal family had lost their daughter long ago. They had a child and they never found this girl. Even then he asked to carefully observe the reaction of the mansion before handing over any gifts. That's probably why he brought them a lot of gifts. Vin wanted to distract these people a little, because he understands that even though they smile at him, the grief hasn't gone away. And he also doesn't ask where their daughter is on purpose, so that he can devote time only to them, and so that they don't think that he came here only for her sake. The woman thanked him for all these gifts. She says that he helped her to distract herself and gave her wonderful emotions that she had not felt for a long time, and this is very valuable. And then she said that they can't just stand and talk on the street, but the guy thought that he should figure out what they're going to do now. This time he was going to tell them about the secret and magical box, but most likely he would quickly ruin their mood. The thing is, since it was originally a gift from the Duchess, he should apologize for giving it to someone else without permission. It was Ayla. Then he felt he had to do it, and now he is trying with great difficulty to admit it. Winfred wondered if this was a redundant topic right now. What if talking about Ayla reminded her of her daughter and made her sad? If you think about it, Ayla is the same age as the missing girl, and for him it's still a bit strange. It's clear to him that the girl definitely looks like a duchess, but he doesn't talk to them about it yet, in case it only makes things worse. He feels like if she's just someone who's a little bit like her, if he were to say it out loud, it would be like rubbing salt into the Duke and Duchess's wounds. Well, it's not something he can just leave like that. He thinks that he needs to somehow raise this topic so that it sounds as natural as possible. Roderick noticed that the guy was thinking. He asked if everything was okay because Vin looked like he was worried about something, to which he replied that it was not like that at all and that he was just very happy to see them after such a long time. And the guy doesn't notice. But when he thinks about it, he very often, one might even say, constantly looks at the Duchess and thus only embarrasses her. Then he realized in time that he needed to somehow control himself. The last thing he needed was to be suspected of something else. Suddenly, the gentleman remembers that he has an urgent letter, and he completely forgot about it. So he asks to continue talking to each other, and he will come soon. He will quickly write a reply and return immediately. But by leaving, he only made these two embarrassed, especially after the guy kept looking at the lady. They felt terribly awkward. And the lady also says that if the guy has something he wants to talk about, then they can discuss anything, because she has no ideas. Vin began by saying that he remembered hearing that she was from the Republic of Tamora, to which the woman replied that she became a citizen of the Empire after she got married. Vin explained that he was simply curious as to whether the Duchess's silver hair was a characteristic feature of the people of Tamora, because he had never seen such appearances here. Sir. The lady herself understands that her hair is really not like the locals. She is very proud of it because she always liked to be different from everyone else. And she also said that she simply inherited it from her mother, but does not think that this is a specific feature of the place where she was born. However, now it has become a characteristic feature of the Hyling family. And then the guy remembers that when they met Ayla, she called herself Ayla Hyling. This is the surname that the woman had before she got married. And this once again confirms the fact that she is Ayla's real mother. At that moment, he was in some kind of stupor. He wanted to tell her a lot now, but at the same time, he was afraid of saying too much. He suddenly stood up from the sofa. This even scared the lady a little, She thought that he didn't like something and wanted to leave. She asked him what happened because before that he was absolutely calm, and she didn't think that her words would make him react like that. And then he starts saying that 3 years ago he met a girl with silver hair, and she immediately understood what he wanted to say. So she explained that although silver hair is rare, it is still not something special, and it is not surprising that someone else could have the same color. And the likelihood that the girl is somehow related to her is very unlikely. And when he said that her name was Ayla Heiling, the lady immediately became thoughtful and her gaze froze in one place. The boy tries to explain that the young girl with silver hair, like the Duchess, and blue eyes like his father. It's too late to think whether it was unnecessary or not. Everything he said has already been said. Now everything depends on whether she believes him or not, whether she is interested in it at all, and whether she trusts this guy. Letter to Ophelia. I apologize for sending this reply only now. I was so busy trying to clear my schedule that I completely forgot. It was you who asked me to come, so please forgive me. So I just arrived at the eastern port of the empire. We can meet soon. Don't prepare a lavish reception, you know? As for your health, I want to check it myself first before we talk. Frankly speaking, it offends my pride that this is a statement that I can't even guess about, and I hope for understanding. And in the meantime, the girl runs out of stationery as usual. This happens at the most inopportune moment. She didn't have time to finish her letter, so she started getting ready to go to the store to urgently buy everything that was out of stock. Then she thought that she had already written all the most important things anyway, and in principle, there was nothing more to add. She ran so fast that she didn't notice how all sorts of books were lying under her feet, and she tripped over them. The girl started crying. She hit her finger hard. The assistant immediately ran up to her because he was very scared for her. But when he saw what really happened, he calmed down. If you compare how hard she fell and how loudly she screamed, it's something too different. It's as if she exaggerated everything. Probably it seemed to her that everything was worse than it actually was. Now she has calmed down a little, and he also felt better. The man even suggested that if she needed anything, he could go to the store himself so that she wouldn't have to strain herself, especially after she had hit herself so hard. The girl understands that he is saying this only out of politeness, so she decided to go herself, especially since she hasn't been outside for a long time. They even started arguing about it. The assistant knows that until she has had a good lunch, it is advisable for her not to do anything energy-consuming, because if suddenly he is not around and she feels uneasy, it will be very bad. He already suggests at least going there together because he doesn't want to stay here and then worry about her, or even worse, look for her in an unknown place. For her, it all sounds too humiliating. She was always told that it is better not to go anywhere alone, but the girl has already grown up and does not understand why this is so. It's outrageous for her that she has to go to the store, and in order to do that, she has to go through such conversations, and when she even manages to go outside, her mood will be ruined. The girl is very good at negotiating, but in the end, she got her way, and she no longer has the desire to go anywhere. She could have been pleased with such good weather, a calm day, but still the opposite. And for this, it was necessary to simply avoid that assistant and not talk to him. Even though he didn't say anything like that, it's an elementary manifestation of concern. Well, sometimes it can be too much. And in the meantime, Ayla has already arrived at this place, and since even here she was asked not to show her face and stay inside the carriage, this means that either they are helping her or she was kidnapped. I'm very curious to see how her life will turn out next, because most likely even she herself doesn't know what to expect. She's already worked herself up a bit, but still, she has this thought inside that if Kaiden is in charge of all this, then it's being done for her own good, and it can't be any other way. Meanwhile, these two are still waiting for Roderick. The lady cried a little and asked for forgiveness for such behavior, although in fact there is nothing like that. The guy tells her that he's the one who feels awkward about it, so I don't have anything to worry about at all. Then he apologized for bringing her to such a state, and thought that perhaps today was not the day to discuss such things. A couple of minutes later, her husband returned. He was a little tense when he saw tears on his wife's face, but then everything was explained to him. Of course, he had to be deceived a little, but there was no other way. Otherwise, this conversation would have dragged on for another couple of hours, and that's at least, even though the man said that he believed them, You can still tell that something is wrong. It's as if he's trying to hide his true emotions, but he can't do it. Vin is very worried. He is already thinking about how to leave here as soon as possible because he has a feeling that if he stays here, it will only get worse. At some point, he even panicked because this was no joke, and perhaps the woman would later tell her husband about what they were talking about here. The woman noticed that he was feeling uneasy, so she offered him either some treats or a walk in the fresh air. She herself has often found herself in such awkward situations, so she understands perfectly well that now it would be best to change the subject and somehow help him. Otherwise, he will remember this shame for a very long time. And since she can help him with this, she did not pretend as if she did not notice anything. It is noticeable how he immediately felt better. Vin felt at home here, that a woman always knows how to create comfort and find a way out of any situation so that everyone feels good. He began to think very well of her, although before he didn't even know that she was such an attentive and kind woman. He really wants to say that she is incredibly similar to the girl he hasn't seen for a long time and about whom he was just talking, but he doesn't, because that would definitely be a mistake. Meanwhile, the carriage is already passing through some other area. Apparently, when they stopped in the city, it was a stop to buy food and water. For some reason, everyone is very tense, as if they are worried about something or afraid of someone. It's good that Ayla doesn't see this. It's already hard for her. She's going somewhere unknown, and if she saw these faces, it would make things even worse for her.